The following is a conversation about Jungian process of individuation and shadow work with Wilhelm, who owns a YouTube channel known as Expanding Consciousness, where he creates small animated videos that's intended to make Jungian concepts much more accessible and expanded upon. I highly recommend you guys to go check out his YouTube channel, Expanding Consciousness. He really puts his heart and soul into it, and it's very entertaining to see these animations work, and it really does help you learn more about Jungian concepts better. Small disclaimer, I had a technical issue while recording this episode, which affected the audio quality of the entire episode. However, I have managed to create and clean it up to the best of my ability and bring to you something that is going to be worth listening to. So please, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, enjoy the episode.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the new episode of the Persian Perspective podcast. Today's guest is Wilhelm. He is the creator of the channel called Expanding the Consciousness. It's an up-and-coming YouTube channel that does very well creating animated content and also on Jungian analysis and expanding upon them and bringing them into a digestible and understandable way to us. And I had the pleasure of having a conversation with him last week, and hopefully today our conversation can delve deeper into what Jung has to offer to us, especially nowadays in the current climate, and hopefully you enjoy. So, Wilhelm, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast, and thanks for accepting to have the conversation, and sorry for the delay again.
Thank you for having me on. Do you hear me? Is the sound good now?
The sound is good.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
I gotta swap this out. Too good. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for checking out my YouTube channel. It's mainly about shadow work. That's the topic about my YouTube channel. Knowing the self.
Yeah, considering that knowing the self, considering how I'm like been trying to understand myself more and more as time is going by, and I never really understood what shadow work really entails. I was always intrigued by it, and I tried to do it, but I could never understand it throughout the years, and more coming towards like the present time, and especially the past year and a half, 2 years, I've found myself understanding it a bit and bit more, and now I know like there is a mechanic to it, and I think everybody kind of needs it. There's recently you look at the news and everyone's pretty much going crazy or being, as you might want to call it, like being overtaken by their shadow or not even understanding what it has for them, what the power it has. I think everyone kind of need to understand what their inner piece of shit or inner shadow, you want to call it, or inner monster that they have, or dragon, you want to call it. And your channel did a very good job in this. Though you do sometimes use like jump scares, which I did not expect.
Yeah, I have it in one Meeting the Soul.
Meeting the Soul, yeah, that was the one I was watching. Yeah, where suddenly like close up of the eyes of the anima, and you're like, oh god, okay. But it has it's a very interesting concept.
It's courageous work, shadow work. What how I want to explain it with my current understanding is shadow work is understanding your emotional reaction. Let's say that you're going to talk on a stage in front of new people, and some people just get frozen up. And shadow work is understanding the core reason why do I get this feeling that's blocking me from performing, when speaking in front of a crowd or doing other stuff. And shadow work is getting to the source of that emotional reaction.
The thing about shadow work, I would love to get into how you got into Jung first, and like how you got introduced to shadow work itself. I was hearing, when I heard about you hear a word but you don't understand it, but for some reason it just clicks with you.
Yeah.
First I was introduced to concept of what Jung was doing, and then he mentioned something regarding the process of individuation. And I was like,
Yes.
I didn't understand what he's talking about for whatever reason. I was like, I want that. I don't know why it happened, but my brain was like, I want to individuate. I want to do that. And apparently the first step to individuate is to understanding your shadow before you move on to your anima and your anima that you have within. And I gotta say, it has helped me considerably with confidence and having a little bit more belief in myself, and also not being overtaken by it in certain sense, because sometimes I can like have that ruthless part of me that can come out, or the cruel part of me that can come out. But we can get into that later. So I would love to know what your take has been so far, and how many years you've been doing it as well.
Are we talking shadow work or the shadow now, or how I got?
We were talking about first getting into Jung and then actually incorporating it into yourself,
Yes.
the practices.
My background story is that when I was in the mid 15 years old, I started having panic attacks. And when you have a panic attack, you have a feeling that you're going to die, and your heart, your breathing, and everything goes out in what's the word I'm looking for? It get out of sync. And my panic attacks were getting more and more severe. So when I was 20, I have had daily panic attacks. And the good thing about it was that if you feel if you have a pistol to it, because I felt like I was dying, and I was dying. My hair was getting gray, or I'll drop me some hair, but that's another issue. But then I started just reading psychology. I just starting minimum 8 hours per day. I had a pistol. I was working simultaneously, but I was on the evening, so when I had some hours I could spare when I was working, I just read everything. And after about 9 years, I got into Jung through Jordan Peterson. Because often when Jordan Peterson spoke, some really wise words, I thought, he was referring to Jung. And then I started reading everything I could find about Jung. But I never felt that I get to the core source. There was something missing. And then I came upon the Red Book by chance. And this took me 9 years to find this book. And this book here is the very source of Jung's material. But it's written in a cryptical way. You have to decrypt the book. It's written with a subconscious language. The subconscious language is more about vibration and symbols. And in every story, there's a hidden subconscious message. Even when you watch a movie, there's almost always a subconscious message behind the movie. And that is from the subconscious. And for example, Jung's Red Book was the very source of his material. That's how I got into the book. So it took me about good 10,000 hours to find. And I was looking everywhere. Different psychologists, profiles, Freud, Peter, everybody.
It's interesting that you got into the Red Book like almost immediately. Like, how long did reading it is one thing. How long did it take for you to understand what it says?
For me, the book took a good year. I fully don't understand it yet. For me, it's an extremely interesting book, but also hard. But for me, I have been studying the book a good year now. And in the first 9 months, I was obsessed. I dreamt about the book. A minimum I spent average 8 to 10 hours trying to understand the book. 365 every day. I could not get it out of my mind for some reason. I was something there I couldn't understand, and my brain was so hungry to try to understand it. And the first chapter in the book, it's about madness. And when I read this, why would I read about madness? So I skipped that chapter. Why would I read about madness? I just want, give me the material, give me the information. The interesting thing is, it's about the philosophy of madness. And why would there be a chapter on philosophy on madness in the beginning of the book? Because to understand certain information, you have to become a little bit mad.
Yeah.
And that is because when you were young, you were not programmed to understand this information if you went to a traditional schooling system. There are schools in this world that teach this. But if you are from a traditional school system, your brain will not be programmed to understand certain information. That's why you have to go and question some core belief systems. And that's when you come upon the feeling of madness.
The thing about the book is that's fascinating, and I understand what you mean by the madness, because it starts with talking about that, and the beauty of it is that at least for me, was that there's a sense of release into it because of the fact that it tells you, if it allows you to imagine, in a sense, and tells you that, the things, there's a part of those chapters that it talks about the fact that there is sense and there is nonsense, and both of them make sense. And the balance between what's real and what's not real is as much as you think there is. It's there. There as much as there's day, there is night, and you should believe in the fact that there is that kind of a thing to the world, that there is some things that you shouldn't even make sense of. But that doesn't mean they don't make sense in any way, which is very contradictory, but it also kind of speaks to what our lives are now I believe it's kind of missing, that sense of acceptance of the things that are just doesn't make sense, and logic needs to be prevailing. I think it kind of also ties into Nietzsche's concept about the death of God, in a sense that it would be kind of just complete, the science has taken over and everything is going to be away, but you're kind of limiting your brain and everything is going to be tarnished because of it. And
it is yes, please.
Yeah, continue.
It's interesting that you mentioned Nietzsche.
Yeah,
because Nietzsche was doing the same. He was meeting, when you do this type of work, you're encountering your own imagination. And then you can say, oh, it's just my imagination. But your imagination, because you are a creature in nature, so even your imagination comes from somewhere in nature. It's not just imagination. It's not by chance. So this work is about encountering your imagination. And the interesting part, Nietzsche also did this work, but he went mad, unfortunately. And that's what the dangers with doing this work, that you have to have a connection with the material world simultaneously. For example, if you're doing shadow work and you get some insights, then you have to try to apply them in the material world. If you go too long in just your imagination, you can get lost, you can get mad. And that was happened to Nietzsche. He didn't reach all the way.
No, it didn't.
And for me,
the interesting
that is
thing
reflected in his work.
Have you read Nietzsche?
Yes, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say I read. I say I attempted to read it. For me, Jung is much more readable than Nietzsche in a weird sense.
I think.
Yeah, I've tried all his material, but again, like you mentioned, that man went through a complete shattering of his consciousness, and he went through a huge state of psychosis for no apparent reason. Nobody really knows, but the questions and the concepts that it brings up, you're like, oh, this guy haven't got to deal with anything that he had within himself, and now he's dealing with it, and he's now torn apart, and he's kind of losing it, and he lost it, unfortunately.
Yeah, he
One
was
thing
doing
about
the same.
I wanted to mention. Oh, continue. Sorry, there was a delay. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, it's a slight delay. Nietzsche did the same work as Jung. And in the first chapter, it says some clear warnings when you do this type of work. For example, understanding yourself is that you have to be connected in the material realm. You have to have family or some duties. Otherwise, it's easy to get lost and you can get trapped in the psychosis. And that was Nietzsche's weakness. He went too deep without trying his understandings or his insights in the material realm for too long.
Dude.
Unfortunately, he went mad.
He lost his mind. Yeah, he lost his mind.
Yes.
It's kind of funny because I was thinking about the whole process of individuation, and before we get into the actual brass tacks of like what shadow work is that I thought it would be individuation. First processes would be incorporation of anima and those parts of you. But then you realize, no, it's actually, you have to go through hell to get to heaven. It's exactly the way Dante went down from hell to purgatory to heaven. And because for a while in initial stages, I'm not going to say I'm too many stages in any way, but I'm just saying in my attempt, I was attempting of understanding my anima, but I always had a dead end in it. So I realized that shadow work had more immediate, but then people were like, the writings were like, you need to understand your shadow initially before you go to anything else.
Yeah, if you have, first you have to encounter your shadow before you can encounter the anima. The anima is more powerful, I would say, than the shadow. Especially when you meet it. It represents the baby's fear of the mother as a newborn. That's how scary the anima is.
That's a very interesting way of putting it, but very potent as well. It does drive the message through.
I can explain, because when you're born, the first minute you are born, imagine yourself, everybody can whoop your ass when you're born, you're a baby. You cannot eat. You're totally independent upon your mother. And that comes with love and also the deepest fear you can imagine in the anima. The fear of the mother the baby has. And that's how scary the anima is. And that is a deeper fear than the shadow. But the shadow is the first thing you feel when you do nothing. It's the shadow pushing you. But deeper is the anima. Jung called the dark woman. It can be a dark woman, the anima.
And it is the ultimate step in individuation if anybody can pull it, because very rare few could.
Everybody can do it. It's just how much you want to push yourself. But everybody can.
With a chance of losing your mind.
Count the anima. Yeah, if you do it sloppy. But imagine if you're going to go to the gym and then you're going to put 300 kilos on the bar the first time you attempt to do a lift. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt your body. Your body is not prepared for that type of weight.
Yeah, that's very true. You have to kind of build up to it and hopefully you'll be ready when the time comes.
Yeah, but you can still encounter the anima.
I want
dreams.
True, but the dreams are still. We'll get to the dreams in a bit. I'm gonna put that up for later down the road. I wanted to know, how did you begin your shadow work, and how long you've been doing so, and have you reached certain conclusions, or have you reached the ultimate conclusion, or you're still on progress of further understanding yourself?
I have done shadow work now for, I would say, 3 years. The real core shadow work. before I was just reading about psychology, but I didn't really look deep into my own imagination. That is shadow work. That I've been doing for approximately 2-3 years now. And no, I'm not close to done. I'm not even close to done. Because I still have, everybody has the problems.
Yeah.
And I have my problems, like everybody has. If you have you heard about Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great one?
No, I have not.
The thrice great one, he was the first known writer about shadow work, Hermes Trismegistus. And why do they say the thrice great one? Because his thoughts were perfectly aligned with reality, the material realm, and he had the deepest care. His emotions were also aligned with humanity, and then his action became by default aligned. That's the end goal of shadow work. Your thought, your emotion, and then ultimately your actions.
Yeah. When was this? When was he from? Like, where was he? Like, which era was he from?
This is approximately 2,000 years before Jesus Christ. And it comes from...
Oh, okay.
Yes. It comes from the Egyptian owned province, Canaan.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And how did has Jung mentioned about this particular?
Yes.
Sorry, like we're talking about an individual or because right now it sounds almost mythological to me now. So I'm like, is this an individual who had this kind of like a prophetic language, or a god?
It's like this. Was he a person or was he God? We don't know. Huh? But let's get back to Jung.
Nice.
But that's the
Imagine.
core of the shadow work. But we can... what I think your viewers will find interesting is the shadow, because that's step one. And just encountering the shadow.
Yeah, especially like people's the main thing that I know what my misconception regarding shadow in particular was that I expected something very different rather than something that would be as common like as in front of me. Like I thought it on a much more, I'm not saying it's a small thing, but the idea and description of shadow, I expected it to be something of like mythological, like almost hallucination, something that you have it in a hallucination. Of course, you can have it in a hallucination should you want it to. But often the descriptions that people have problem with is that what is shadow really? And people don't understand, like, oh, it's everything that you hate about your hate in others. That's what you have in you. That negative side, that power that you have in your side, that you, if you see a murderer and you despise the murderer, maybe you have that killer instinct within yourself, but you're denying it. That whole repression of anger and resentment, and not necessarily everything evil, but something that has the power of being evil if you don't manage it.
Yes. Because everybody has the shadow. I can take a good example. Let's say you're afraid of dogs. For some reason, when you see a dog, you get this deep emotional reaction that comes from somewhere. Your heart rate goes up, you start sweating. Everybody has that type of scenario. It can be speaking in public, dogs, most people has it.
Yeah.
And that's where your shadow is hiding behind. That deep feeling of a fear you don't really understand where it comes from. That's often where your shadow is hiding. And if that fear goes unconscious for too long, it will start to take over other parts of your life.
That's very true.
Yeah. And the more you understand about your shadow, the more you're able to see the true person behind. For example, if I meet a new person and I have really encountered my own shadow, I can see more behind their true character, who they were when they were born as a baby. You see the baby in them, and not the shadow is the beast part of you. You're one third animal. The shadow represents that animal also. There's a lot of ego behind in the shadow.
Yeah, it's a very primal in its own, in a sense, but in tying it somewhat to your background, because you mentioned in our call last time that you had certain like anxieties of performing in front of people. Did shadow work came into play in order for you to be better? Because right now, you do stand-up comedy, as I heard that you told me about that you do now. Did it came into play to shed that anxiety in a sense?
A little bit background, because I had this panic attack, and then you start hiding from things when you have panic attacks. And one of my biggest fear became rooted in speaking in front of, or I would say performing in front of a new people I didn't know. So I was working as an engineer, and I had done programming work, and I was going to show my work to a board. And then I just entered the meeting, and I don't really remember what happened. I was just having panic, and they asked me questions. I was full panic mode in the meeting.
Oh my God.
That was before I encountered my shadow. And then I started to do shadow works, and now I can perform stand-up comedy. That would many people say is the ultimate fear in some way. It's just a crowd of 100 people you never seen before. Go up and make some funny jokes. See?
Yeah.
Then you really, if you have certain feelings when you're talking to a beautiful woman or a big crowd, the crowd senses your vibration. And that's where shadow work can help you. It changes your emotional reaction when you perform or meet a beautiful woman.
And using what shadow work gave you, in a sense, brought that part of your, I suppose, your inner strength out, in a sense.
It's not that easy, because it's a process. Because you do some active imagination. We can get into that later. And then you get some insights about yourself. And then they have to be tested in the material realm. And then that's the process. For example, if you're afraid of speaking in front of a new crowd, then you go and do it. First you do the shadow work so you don't faint on stage. Then you get a little bit more courage, then you push it also in the material realm.
We can actually get into that section right now about it. Like, how did you begin with your shadow work? Like, I know there's like multiple different people have different methods of what it would give them results. Some people can even like, some of my it's funny that you do stand-up comedy, because I do stand-up comedy occasionally, and my friends are all stand-up comedians, and it's some of them exercise their shadow on the stage, and it's very interesting that it comes up like they're generic comedians, and there are some people that when they start talking, you kind of go like, you're going through something on the stage, and I can see it. You're talking about something a little bit more primal, like I can see your teeth kind of growing a little bit as you're talking, but they come off the stage and they're jolly as it gets. But on the stage, I can always be like, oh, hey, you're channeling something from within you. So how did you dealt with your shadow work? What was your approach?
First, I was reading a lot of psychology. You have to have the back. I have about thousands of hours. I read Nietzsche. I read everywhere. Jordan Peterson. Thousands of hours.
Yeah.
Then I started to reading about active imagination. And then I started trying that. And when you do that for the first time, especially if you have deep problems with anxiety, it's scary. In the beginning, I flipped out. I did the deep meditation. And the first time, I just flipped out. I need to run out and get some air. I did that process more and more, deeper and deeper in meditation. And eventually I was able to encounter my shadow. It's the first thing that you really encounter when you go in and meet your subconscious.
Right. Like, are you saying that that's regular among people who partake in active imagination? That's usually the first encounter is the shadow?
Yes, it's the gatekeeper to the door, the shadow.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And when you first meet the shadow in your deep mind, you can do it also with dreams, lucid dreaming, awakened dreaming, you can call it. But when you encounter the shadow, it will show you your greatest fear, and you have to go through that vision.
Really?
And that it will try to scare you with your greatest fear. For example, if you're afraid of snakes or dogs, or you will see the most frightening dog you can even imagine attacking you or something. And you have to go through that whole process and let it even attack and bite your body in your imagination. And when you encounter that, the shadow will reveal itself what it truly is.
And your active imagination, did you went through it through like regular, like sitting down and meditating, or like was it like actively typing as it goes? Like how Robert A. Johnson like mentions is like sit down on a typewriter and just start stream of consciousness typing it out as your images go. And by the way, how long did it take for it to pick up? Because I'm trying it. I have trials and error. I have like success rate is 10% for me out of every attempt.
Well, my first success was actually with the dreaming method.
Lucid dreaming.
And yes, lucid dreaming, because that's the same as active imagination. Because when you're dreaming, you get pictures from your subconscious.
Yeah.
And a short, quick step about the process is that I started writing down my dreams. And when you write down your dreams, they get more and more intense. And each morning you write down more and more. And after I done that for a good weeks, I started counting my fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All the time. Every day. And then you send a little subconscious hack to your brain. So when you're having a dream and you have been counting your fingers, you get a little back door into your subconscious. So in the dream, you get this urge to look at your hand, for example. And when you're dreaming, your hand is not going to look as familiar. It might look a little bit weird. You see, that's not my real hand. If you've been doing the hand practice, for example. And then you know, oh my God, I'm in a dream right now.
Oh, now you have to manipulate.
I have direct visual contact with my subconscious. And for example, if you have that, then you can ask, where does my fear of dog, for example, if you're afraid of women or dogs or anything, you can ask, what's your deepest fear, for example? Then you can ask it, where does my deep fear come from? Then your shadow is going to come knocking at your door. It's going to come in the dream and show you things. I just get goosebumps when I'm thinking about it.
Jeez. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you started lucid dreaming, and the method you're talking about, okay, you're sitting, when you say you're counting your finger, you're like laying down and you're just like counting to 5 and looking at your hand the whole time, or you just, every day you're just like constantly reminding yourself to like investigate the palm of your hand and then use that as a means to like hack into it. When you're dreaming, your hand is the first thing you're going to check out.
Exactly. But it takes time. And I did it when I was shopping groceries. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I saw him in the store. It's OCD or something, I'll say. And I work, 20 times a day I did it. For a few days. It went quite quick for me.
That's very good. Yeah, I have problems with the dreaming in general because it's, as you mentioned, like I might be forgetting my dreams. I have a dream journal. They're same thing with you. As I mentioned, I told you this before. I don't know if it was coincided with the time. I think it did coincide with the time I bought the red book. Just prior to even reading it, I just bought it, and for a period of 1 month, I was having dreams every night that I could remember. Very strange ones as well. Like I dreamt of apocalypses. I dreamt of jumping in the sea and tying a stone to my leg, and I'm like, what am I doing? So and it kept getting more and more bizarre. Um, but I'm still really trying to like find a way to dream more, or at least remember them. Like when I jot down I know that you need to have a dream journal, and I have it, and I do jot them down. But I'm still hoping to like be able to like hack that part of my brain to be able to see those visions a little bit more better.
It requires courage.
Yeah.
For example,
Yeah, and
you tell me you dreamt of, it was quite interesting that you mentioned it. You dreamt about jumping into water with a stone tied around your leg. What did you say?
yes, actually, I was on top of a ledge on a seawall. You know, like those like mountainous area, but by the sea that suddenly looks like a dam that is because it's like shaved off because it's just like a straight line down. And I was there, and I was looking at the ocean coming and going backward, and like hitting the tides were hitting the seawall, and I had this stone that I had tied around it, almost like a present, like uh, how should I put it? Yeah, it was almost like a ribbon that's been tied around it like a present. And I think I wanted to. I wasn't gonna kill myself. I know that, but I wanted to go deep down. That I knew. I knew I wanted to go deep down into the water, and the stone was supposed to pull me there. It wasn't a suicide attempt. It was I want to go what's underneath there. And I don't think I managed to get to the point of actually go jumping. I woke up most probably before that. It was not a malicious dream. I just woke up and I was like, what was that? Why am I by the sea wall? Sorry, what?
It was a powerful dream. I can tell you what the water represents.
By all
The
means.
water represents your emotions.
Yeah.
And diving into the water represent understanding your emotions.
Hmm. Well, that will coincide with the fact that I'm trying to like understand myself far better than I know what I know right now.
I can also tell you this, all your emotional reactions is coming deep from your anima, your female part of you.
Yeah. That's very interesting because of the resemblance from because it was because of the symbolism of the water or in something else.
The water represents your emotions.
Yeah.
And for example, if you have a dream that you want to go deep, jump down with a stone in the water,
Yeah.
it represents that you don't understand your emotional reactions yet. And that, but everybody has, everything in nature grows. Trees grows. You're a part of nature, and your dreams are a part to help you grow and to understand where your emotion comes from, especially your emotional reactions. That is a deep, deep part in individuation, understanding yourself.
That's very interesting. That is very interesting.
You have
I'll keep note of that. Yeah, we'll keep note of that for sure.
But all your all your emotional reactions comes from your anime.
That's between
it's the female part of your psyche.
Okay. I don't know what to really say in response to it, but rather than the fact that I kind of had suspected that through my shadow work at least, I've noticed that part of my shadow is actually remarkably female compared to, like, there's like certain like responses that I have that are come from the negative is a more female kind of a way of approach rather than a more masculine. But I don't know what to really put more on this. Yeah, but this is very interesting.
I can say, we humans, we have the two brain halves, left and right.
Yeah.
And those what those brain halves truly represents is, one part is the intellect, your just processing ability, and one part is your emotional side. And the right brain represents your emotions, and the left brain represents the masculine. It could be vice versa. So, and that's the female part of you. You have a woman. Everybody has a woman and a woman within.
Yeah.
A deep one.
Right.
Jung writes about this in the beginning of the book. Yeah, in the Red Book, there are two characters that goes along him through the whole book. It's the Solomon and Elijah.
Yeah.
What they just represent is the male intellect and the female emotional part of the brain. And the book is about balancing those, so you get perfect balance in your brain. That's what truly Jung does. And in Jung's, I think, second...
That's what I'm kind of seeking and hoping to establish.
Yeah. In the beginning of the book, Jung encounters Solomon, and Solomon represents his animal. And he sees Solomon, he's afraid of Solomon. For him, Solomon, when he meets her in his when Jung meets Solomon in his subconscious, she represents all his emotional reactions. He doesn't know it yet in the beginning of the book. He has not come to that understanding. But meeting the animal is meeting... Imagine you're walking in the woods by yourself, in the woods, and suddenly a big tiger appears in front of you.
Yeah.
And you know this tiger is more beautiful than anything you have ever seen, but it can also crush you if it wants. Imagine just looking at that tiger. That's your animal. And then Solomon tells Jung, I love you. Do you love me? And he flips out on it. It's too much for him, you know.
Wow.
And then it goes to Elijah is there also. And it goes to Elijah. Solomon has blood on her hands in the book. She has murdered things. He sees that. And then Jung said, how can she love me? And then Elijah said, you are cowardly. And then the vision stops.
Yeah. Oh, man. Is that the same vision that Jung saw when he heard that if you cannot decode this, you better kill yourself right now?
No,
not.
I don't think that's the same.
It's not the same. No, it's not the same. Yeah, because there was anima involved in that vision. So now you're mentioning it. I was like, oh, was that the same? It wasn't. Which just shows how intense his vision was. I'm not gonna tell you more. We can have another episode maybe on dream analysis or something, because that would be very interesting. Because right now you mentioned a very good approach to it. But after you're done, I'm gonna go back on the track with the shadow work for now. After you're done with the whole idea with the lucid dreaming, then how did you moved on to writing and doing like active work into it aside from lucid dreaming?
Yes, but I do it in periods because it's quite, it's like going to the gym and pushing your body hard. Also, if you push your mind with your imagination, you need, for me personally, I take some periods off. Try to use the insights I gain in reality. Yeah, but that's how I started the YouTube channel. It was from shadow work that the idea came up.
Oh,
yes.
How was that?
When you do shadow work, you get this new ideas come popping. I think everybody has ideas. I should try that, or I should do that. But most people never come to any action. That's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do shadow work, those ideas come up from deep inside. I should try this. But then you get the courage to also start a YouTube channel or do a podcast, for example, or take action, go and do stand-up.
Yeah.
And that's part of the process.
And what kind of shadow, was this lucid dreaming, or were you like doing writing it out or acting it out? How were you like engaged in this particular shadow work?
I have done all three methods: psychedelics, dream method, and just deep active imagination. And for me, all three has been successful.
How was the psychedelic one? Which psychedelic did you use for it?
I have tried the mushrooms.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And DMT.
DMT also. Oh, nice. No, unfortunately, that's if there's the one thing I would ever want to try is probably DMT. But I suppose once you get engaged with them, they kind of might be similar. Which method gave you the best experience, at least in the sense of sorting yourself out? That you look at it, you go like, I got something out of this that I know I couldn't get out of anything else. I'm not just talking psychedelic, anything that you've got that you're like, I can do this again because this worked for me the best.
All three for me.
All three.
Yes, for me, and they come from the same source. So
And
all three are just it's methods to expand your consciousness, your meaning, your subconscious. The subconscious is a part of you. All three methods is ways to encounter it.
You
don't need drugs for it. No. You don't need.
Drug. Yeah,
it's a bad word. I don't like. To me, I don't like that word. It's a bad word. It's more plants growing in nature.
It's what they try to label it now. Apparently, so far I've seen it's helped a lot of people out compared to pharmaceuticals. So there's that. But at the same time, this might be a weird question. That is part of me is like what you saw in your active imagination. Let's say you encountered certain vision in your active imagination. Was it on par? Was it the same character showing up in your psychedelic trip or in any other form of active imagination you partake in? Like, was the vision, at least the characters that showed up, were they the same, or were they altered but representing the same element to you?
I can talk about my personal encounter with the shadow.
Okay. If you're comfortable, by the way, I'm not putting you on the spot. If you don't share anything you don't want to share.
No, nothing like that. Yeah. For me, I see it as a duty to give this information to as many people as possible. That's why I do it also. It's a moral obligation to do this. And my encounter with the shadow, it took a long time and it requires a lot of courage. Many times when I tried to do it, I flipped out, It became too intense.
Okay.
Also, when I encountered the shadow, what helped me was that I was with a beautiful woman next to me. But when you go deep, you leave. But she also boosted my courage a little bit, so I was able to encounter the shadow. So, and I was using the dream method.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to have a lucid dream, and then I asked, where does my deep panic attacks come from? And then I see a shadow approaching. And this shadow is a huge shadow, and it turns to an anaconda snake, just in pure darkness.
Yeah.
And this snake then goes towards me, wriggles towards me. And then it goes through whole my body. The whole my body is with this shadow snake around. And it's trying to squeeze me. And then, but the more it tried, I felt that it was easier and easier, you know. After, it's hard to mention time, but after maybe a minute, I had this thought that I see this snake trying to squeeze me. I'm not afraid of this anymore. I just had this deep feeling from me. Then the snake became mad at me. The giant snake, they come mad and looked right in my face. Tried to scare me one last time, but couldn't scare me anymore. Then the shadow snake turned into a rat. And the rat tried to flee.
Yeah.
And then I get this pure sense from my soul to grab the rat. So I grab the rat with my right hand and pull the rat. And I hold it right to my face. And it's a nasty bastard, this rat.
Weird.
It's mad. It's mad that I have found it, this rat. Then I asked the rat, what do you want from me now? Then the rat replies, I am done with you for now. For now.
For now.
For now. Then the rat it's still mad. It looks at me, it's a nasty bastard, this rat. It's like, and then it walks out of my hand, opens a hidden secret door. It's just a pure white behind that door also. Steps through that door, looks at me one last time, and then slams the door shut. And then I came back.
Wow.
And then I had the feeling that if you have been holding a heavy stone, and I've been holding this stone for 50 years, I can finally drop it.
Oh, wow. You felt your muscles loosened up.
Yeah, because when you have panic, you have hard breathing, you have breathing. And that was the snake. It was deep in my subconscious, constantly squeezing me in certain situations.
Jeez. Okay.
I encountered it and got really, it should not be there, you little bastard. So that's how I encountered my shadow, and he was a nasty bastard.
Okay. Well, lucid dreaming is going to be on top of my list for now. I've got to try that a little bit to see if I can get it working.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and then, wow. And almost instantly you felt I'm not going to say you had a miracle like recovery from anxiety, but like you managed to like take on more than you could previously, considerably.
Yeah, then like what happened was that for the first, I had the feeling of enlightenment. It's the highest emotional vibration.
Yeah.
Enlightenment. When you feel this feeling, you vibrate at the highest level. It's much more pleasant than any feeling you can imagine. I had this feeling 3 times in my life, I think now. But that time was the second time I had it. But it was more powerful than ever. Just right after when I wake up. Pure, and then the process started of doing things I wanted to try. At work or taking more risk, I could be more courageous. I can stand up more for myself.
Jeez, that's very nice. That's
you have to be careful because it's that the rat said, and this is similar to everybody, I'm done with you for now.
Yeah.
For now. It didn't say I'm done with you forever. If you slip into old habits again, it can come back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I also like, it's like working out and then you stop working out, your muscles are going to go away quickly. If you stop putting pressure on, you're going to get weak. Doesn't mean that the strength you had is going to remain where it was. You just have to keep tabs on it.
Yes. It was more scary or interesting, you can call it both, is that when I meet people, I can see if they have the same type of shadow as I had. Just by the breathing, I can see, oh my God, you have that snake squeezing you. You don't just know it. That's why this person has this type of emotional reaction. I can see it much deeper after I encounter my own. My processing of the world has changed.
That's very good. That's very interesting. Not that I have come to understand my shadow without any visualization, just my own personal shadow. And that has been mainly through reading and just using the no active imagination involved in my technique is just through reading and pinpointing what I had an emotional reaction to. And just that, I can tell I got a little bit higher than that was before. Not, I still wish I had the physical, like I had the visual aspect of it because I'm a visual person. But it is funny because when I have that, just by understanding my own emotional quirks or things that I have any sort of a reaction to, I have noticed that when somebody does something or somebody was being a bit of a dick or something, my brain like reacts to it. I'm like, oh, hey, you have that. This person has this sort of weakness. This person has this sort of way of like for example, like working in a company and like we had this person who was like incredibly insecure. So her insecurity would come out as being rude to everybody off the bat. And I instantly knew and like she pushed up at me and I was like, if I push back just now, if I just push back, she's gonna break. And I pushed back not even badly. I just like called her out on like what she was doing and she crumbled. And it was very interesting for me to see. I was like, oh, because I noticed what I had, she had what I had, maybe to a different degree, and now she is kind of encapsulated by it. It's there, but she hasn't managed to exercise her shadow at least, to the minimum degree that I have at least. There was one active imagination I mentioned to you previously on our call was that throughout the active imagination, now I don't know why there was a rejection. Maybe you can enlighten me. This was a very vivid one because I was sitting and I was imagining, and I was just in the realm of unconscious in a sense with my eyes open, but suddenly the vision came about. And there was this giant stone door in front of me, this blue stone, very dark blue, old stone made up that consisted the structure of the door. And I knew my shadow was going to be behind that. And I could feel it was behind that. And I wanted to open the door to it. And I felt a hand on my shoulder. And this man in a robe, which I didn't see his face. I know it was a man in a robe. I just don't know anything else about him. He said, hey, you're not ready to see it, man. Back off. I was not even a threatening way. It was more like an advising me in a sense. I was like, no, I want to go see it. It was like, no, back off. But it was like, no, I want to. He was like, all right. And I pulled on the door, and whatever was behind it, because I could feel a force behind the door, slammed at the door, and like a Bugs Bunny kind of a thing. Like the door, the door, as I mentioned, is like the door caves, like I have a curve outward and then goes back to neutral, like how it was before. The door caves a little bit, hits me in the head, and I snap out of a dream. And it was very interesting because I could feel my forehead because the door hits my forehead, and I snapped out of it from the pain of my forehead, and I felt it in the real life. So, and I wasn't under any psychedelics. I wasn't under any substance or anything. I'd never done any of them. I'm just sitting and like forcing myself to like losing time and going into active imagination. So I have no idea why I wasn't ready for it, but this was like a few years ago. So might have been I was maybe too young for it or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's you felt the power of the shadow. You felt deep fear. First you're kind of cocky, and then when it really starts happening, oh my God, and that's this deep emotion starts coming. But as I recommend, if you have this type of character trying to help you or give you some advice, speak with him, ask him, why do you say this then? Then he can give you some things you have to do in the material realm. For maybe do some martial arts or some advice for dancing or something in material realm, and then you can come.
Yeah. To exercise the power of it.
Yeah.
Or the physicality.
For example, the danger with psychedelics is that you can get pushed right in if you go deep. You just boom right in. Some people are not ready for it.
Yeah, that's a risk. The risk of a bad trip. And I mean, I know some people say there is no such thing as a bad trip. You always get something out of it, but also like some people might actually completely lose their mind, lose their marbles.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this type of active magic is more soft. You go at your own pace.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
anything in particular regarding shadow work that you want to mention right now? We're coming up to an hour.
Yeah, time was quick.
Thank you. Yeah.
Shadow work is ultimately about finding true care. For example, let's say you're sitting in the sofa and you get the urge to go to the bathroom. Why do you go to the bathroom? You can just lay. Something in you says go to the bathroom. For example, and then when you wake up in the morning, many people are unmotivated. They don't have this feeling of love and care for the world. And shadow work is about finding that deep care you have. So when you wake up, you're driven by genuine love and care. You don't go to work because you must, because you truly care. That is shadow work, finding true care and love.
Yeah. That's a very beautiful way to put it, because usually shadow work is not phrased from love. It's not approached from the angle of love. It's usually approached from the angle of evil, because hence the name shadow.
Yes. But, for example, do you remember when you were a young child, 3, 4 years old? You just woke up in the morning, you were so hungry for life, so curious.
Yeah.
You remember those if you don't have a really fucked up childhood, some people unfortunately had it, but most people can at least remember when they woke up when they were very young and just so excited and hungry about life. That's what shadow work is about, is finding back that young love and care. You have it in you, getting back to it, waking up as a grown person and with the same emotion, waking up and taking action upon the world. Genuine love. That's the ultimate goal with shadow work.
Becoming that again. Becoming that kid with a sense of wonder and thirst for life.
Yes, that love and curiosity for the world. But you still have your other experience. You're more power grown up. And if you really care about something, imagine you have a hard task, but you really care about it. You just do that task. That's how our reality is created, with care. If you really care about something, then you do it. Whatever it is, either you die or it gets done. That's true care.
Yeah.
Well, it's worth dying for.
Yeah, it is worth dying for. I believe part of the reason I also cut into whole shadow work and just Jung in general, was that I feel the missing of that element, of that sense of wonder and joy in life, and also I would say I'm using this term because I'm trying to understand it better, and I also try to have it more in my life, which is the term meaning. To have a more meaningful life, because be it good or be it bad, but have it meaningful. That's something that is kind of an obsession in my head of like, if I don't have a meaningful life, then there's no fucking point to any of it. And the modern world, I'm 28, soon to be 29. What the fuck do I know about the life? I didn't have a difficult life much. So, but at the same time, whatever I look at it, I feel like it's way too crooked for me, and lack of that imagination and meaning in it is very prevalent. And I think that Jungian analysis and shadow work and all these kinds of things are actually a way for me, one of the most prominent way of having meaning in it and bringing that inner meaning into it.
Yes, it's all about connecting with your creative side, because pure creativity is the same emotion as love.
Yeah.
And humans, we are creative beings. Our nature is we feel good when we create. We don't feel good when we drink alcohol or just watch pointless games. Just a short-term pleasure. But the long-term wholeness you get when you try to create something. We are creative beings. And you can only be truly creative with love.
Yeah.
Love for the world. We are creative beings. That's our human true nature when we feel it's made me regret.
Have you become more creative with through your shadow work, after your shadow work?
Yes. It's the only, I can say, only reason that I had the YouTube channel. I can do stand-up comedy. I can do. Because before I was working as an engineer, and how, you get tasks from the management. Do this, execute this, execute this. And you don't really question, is this even moral behavior, the things I'm creating? I'm just doing it for money.
Yeah.
I'm not doing because I really enjoy it. No.
You feel like you're wasting your life.
Yeah, you can say.
Okay. I think we can wrap up the conversation right now. Anything you want to add for the end of the shadow work, or anything you want to promote on? I don't have much of big of an audience yet, but if anything you want to mention, we can actually mention. But be sure to keep your YouTube channel's name in it. It's doing well. I'm very happy to see your YouTube channel doing well, because it's very unique. It's like a hidden gem if you find it.
Thank you.
It really is.
My creative side.
Yeah, it's very beautifully done. It's like an old 80s, 90s like dust nostalgia that comes out with these like very simple but very potent animation.
Thank you. Yes,
all right.
If you're listening and you're interested in this type of work, please check out my YouTube channel. I make it to trying to explain some information that can be hard to understand.
Yeah, and it's completely
shadow.
And it's done very well. The YouTube channel, again, ladies and gentlemen, is Expanding Consciousness, expanding_consciousness, and it's totally gonna worth your time. The videos are not too long and are done very well. Very nice narration, by the way. And looking forward to see your next videos, man. And maybe we can like pick up if you. I hope you enjoyed this, by the way. Thanks for doing this. It's a real, at least for me, it's a huge pleasure talking about this stuff with someone who knows enough about it.
Thank you. I spent a lot of time trying to understand it.
All right.
Thousands of hours.
Yeah. Well, totally worth it then. Anywho, thank you very much, Wilhelm. Thank you for doing this. Till next episode, maybe we can actually even have another episode on this later on, see how this goes.
Yes. Take care.
Take care, brother.